and welcome. Tonight I am here to talk to you about impossible truth, which confounds anthropologists today as much as it did philosophers in the 5th century, for it is as inexplicable and complex as the human psyche from which it is derived. The matter I am referring to is altruism, or beings acting out of selfless concern for the welfare of others with known and appreciable personal cost.
This behaviour constitutes the polar opposite of the hedonism and self-interest philosophers such as Jean-Jacques Rousseau so comfortably applied to questions of human nature, and yet in truth altruistic behaviour is not so rare. What causes us to act in the interest of others with such abandon?
You see, the impossible truth I spoke of is that altruism even exists. But just why is it that the odds should be against us helping others?
To understand this better, we're going to have to explore just why altruism is such an unlikely symptom of the human condition. Follow me!
Now, up until the 19th century, naturalists widely believed that beings were immutable, and that human nature rested on a fixed point, thereby making a universal definition of ethics plausible. By this notion, the way that people should and do act, and why, was a truth related to our essential self. However, Charles Darwin's controversial work, The Origin of Species in 1859, challenged this notion by providing empirical evidence of a common ancestry in the natural world, showcasing a concept of evolution across all species through the process of natural selection. This theory states that organisms best suited for their conditions thrive in a population group to pass on their genes, thus making these favourable traits dominant. Lofty notions of humans being compelled to do good because of some essential divinity fell short of this clinical assessment, under the weight of the fact that we are all ultimately driven to survive by biological impetus, since altruism is defined by helping others at a significant cost to oneself. It seems like the antithesis of this overriding self-interest. This is what makes its existence such an impossible truth, but still history is littered with examples of those who have helped others, from canonized saints to the well-documented cases between 1933 and 1945 of everyday men taking the places of their countrymen in the Nazi death camps, aiding others despite the fact that it meant the absolute cancellation of their own survival. To a lesser degree, we see altruism in the work of volunteers, proliferation of charities in the modern world, and the smallest acts of human kindness. So the essential question is, what brings us to this? There are a couple of possible explanations for why, against all logic, human beings choose to engage in helping behaviour, despite there being a significant and known personal cost. One of the most credible theories to explain altruism is that of there being an anatomical basis for this behaviour. As contemporary psychology has acquired a cognition emphasis, much of how our brain's cerebral cortex affects behaviour such as personality, memory and judgment has become clear. For altruism, the prefrontal cortex superior to the frontal lobe has been implicated as responsible for ethical decision-making. Multiple tests in which functional magnetic resonance imaging was used to assess the brain activity of study participants showed that those who achieved high on empathy and selfless giving indexes had a more active prefrontal area during decision-making. Strong evidence, but does this fully explain altruism? After all, cross-sectional studies of family units in both London and South America showed that there was a significant difference in how altruism is enacted across cultural boundaries. Why would this be? Of course, anatomical explanations leave something to be desired when exploring why people are compelled to altruism. Not only is helping behaviour not universal in form, but there is conjecture about whether neural imaging techniques are accurate enough to be dependable. Consequently, some anthropologists have rejected brain structures being the sole cause to propose altruism as a marker of socio-cultural evolution. In other words, people help because it aligns with the shared values of a prosperous society, and younger generations are taught, some would say conditioned, to uphold these ethics. This creates a cyclic effect in which altruism is believed to be inherent. However, it is more a product of culturally dependent values than of our physical selves. Of course, while anatomy and social conditioning are two popular theories, there are many more explanations offered to define the nature of this ever-present but mysterious phenomenon. Proponents of psychodynamic theory, as originally put forward by Sigmund Freud, state that we only help others because there is an assumption that we will be helped in return, making it nothing more than an extension of our inherent self-interest. Modern social psychologists even push for a system of delineating altruism and its dark polar opposite, egoism, along a scale, rather than considering them as separate behavioural categories. So then, just as Twinings is defined by its citrusy bergamot taste, altruism is a defining trait of our collective humanity, and whatever the cause, it is heartening to know that we are capable of, and often do, conceive causes which are above and beyond the satisfaction of our own needs.